Who of you would like to do less of the things that aren't any good for you? I'd rather do less of that stuff that doesn't fit me, things I only do for people to like me, things that pull me away from the way I really want to live. But my question is, how do we gain inner freedom to no longer do things? A nice story about that, children's story, Oh, How Beautiful is Panama. Who knows this picture book? You all know it. The story has a tiger and a bear. It's by János. And tiger and bear, they actually have a great life. They live in a nice house by a little river. One day they get this idea that they must find Panama, because they read on a banana box Panama. And they get this idea, Panama is so cool. And suddenly they think, it's not so great around here. And they have to go somewhere else. They have to go on a journey because Panama, that's where things are truly great. And the story ends when they get back to the place where they already live and recognize they actually have a real good life already. We had this all along. And I want to ask you, what would it take for tiger and bear to have the inner freedom to say, you know what, I don't need to run anywhere. I don't need to do anything. I have all that I need right here. And I call this breaking free towards freedom. Freedom is incredibly important. If you want to find out how important freedom is to you, then ask the person next to you to push your head to the ground. Sure, you can try that. Do it in teams of 2 or at home. And do it a longer time. Really push to the ground. You will notice that you get the urge to hit everything around you. We can't stand it not to be free. We're made for freedom. And philosophers, of course, think deeper about the terms, and they see a difference between outer freedom and inner freedom. Today in our modern world, outer freedom is very important. This thing of, I can do what I want, I don't need to follow some outside rule. But this is only part of freedom. There's a famous dialogue of Socrates. He's a student of Plato, and in the dialogue Philebos, we read how Socrates is talking to a sophist. Those are wisdom teachers of that time, I think Protagoras. And Socrates discusses with him what makes true happiness. When is a human truly happy? When are they truly free? And the guy talking to Socrates says, you're truly free if you can always do what you want. And Socrates takes it to the extreme and says, okay, you mean you have a desire and can always fulfill that desire. And he's like, yeah, that's true freedom. A lot of people today would probably say the same thing. I desire something and I can do what I want. I can fully express myself. And Socrates says, well, then the most free and happy person is someone who has an itch, because they feel the itch really strongly and want to really scratch themselves, and then they want to scratch again and do so, and they are infinitely happy. And the point Socrates is making is, he says, you be free on the outside to do what you want, but are you also free on the inside to want what you want? Or are you only a slave to your desires, your wishes, and your impulses? Outer freedom is one thing, inner freedom is another. The philosophers and also the religions, Buddha talks a lot about not being attached to outward things, have dealt with this question. And it's also a reoccurring theme in the Bible. It's a classic. The Bible is a story of breaking free, of the exodus from slavery. The most famous example is, of course, the exodus from Egypt. The Jews celebrate it to this day in the Passover. But there's also the exodus to inner freedom. For example, we see this also, outer freedom and inner freedom, with the story of Abraham. First, Abraham had to go out from his father's house, so he hears the voice say, Abraham, go out from here. That's the first step. But as soon as he's gone out, we see inner things happen. You realize Abraham is kind of a coward. So he goes to Egypt and says, that's not my wife, that's my sister. He plays tricks. And then he gets the promise that he will be a father, but it takes too long for him, and he then thinks, I could also sleep with my servant girl. And then, of course, there's 2 women with problems and jealousy. You get this sense he's broken free on the outside from his old life. But on the inside, he's only getting started. And about this inner part, finding inner freedom, that's what I want to talk to you about today. There is one story in the Bible that brings this showdown into clear view. And it's a story from the life of Jesus, which sounds incredibly modern. We're talking about inner freedom, breaking free towards inner freedom. And before Jesus does anything outwardly noticeable, he retreats into solitude for a long time. He goes to a desert. The desert is a place where there's not only no water, but also where nobody lives. So it's lonely, empty, silence, with nobody around. Maybe you know that feeling too. When you come back from a business trip, from a vacation, or a conference, or a party, and you're all of a sudden home, and the thought spiral starts to go off. And it's interesting what inner voices we start hearing, what impulses we hear when we are all of a sudden alone. And Jesus, from the starting point, is doing pretty good because he just came from being baptized in the Jordan. And at the Jordan, God told him personally, "You are my son, and I am pleased with you." You could say, if God says something like that to you, that's great. It's really interesting what voices Jesus hears next. For example, we read in the Gospel of Matthew that the tempter approaches him. So a voice of temptation comes and offers him different things. The first is that the tempter comes to him and says, "If you are the Son of God, so if it's really true that you are really God's Son, tell these stones to become bread." So a first voice that says, "Here, look, you haven't eaten for 40 days, you poor thing. You must be so hungry. See here, bread would make you feel better. Just snap and do this and you'll have some food. Doesn't sound so bad." Then there's a second thought, or a second impulse. And it says, "Look, I'll take you up to the temple where everyone can see you, the central location of Jerusalem. And now, if you're truly the Son of God, no problem. Be like Superman, just jump down." What would be the advantage? Well, the whole world would see that you're the Messiah. Isn't that nice? If you're the Messiah but nobody knows it, imagine God becomes man and nobody sees it. I mean, that's dumb, right? Come on, I have something better for you. It'll be quick. And we'll do this so everyone sees it. We'll do this so everyone applauds you. Everyone will love you. Isn't that what you've always wanted? That's the second voice. The second offer. The third offer goes in the similar direction. We'll make a deal. You make a little compromise about the whole "you can only worship God" thing, okay? Bow and worship me, can we do that? Then I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world and all their glory. And he'd said to him, "All this will I give you." Not so bad, right? These three voices, they have to do with this here. See, such an offer, do something. And do it quickly. So people see and they applaud and you feel good. And Jesus has to face this fight. He has to achieve inner freedom before he can do outward ministry. Similar as with Abraham. Abraham first has to get away from his stuff, and then he gets the promise from God, "You will be the father of many nations." And I want to present you possible voices that you might know from your own life, and of which I think in the measure that you can achieve inner freedom like Abraham, you can become a father of many like Abraham, meaning a person who brings freedom to many people and brings life. Psychologists have developed a concept for this. It's not exactly the same thing. But they thought about how our decision-making processes work. And similarly, as there are different voices or the tempter who approach Jesus with different suggestions, so also decision-making goes in our inner mind. There are inner voices, and I don't mean schizophrenia or something like a split personality, but simply when you think, should I do this or that, you weigh your options. There are different arguments. How could I do this or that? But here would I earn money and there would I have more fun, but really I want this. Like it's a self-dialogue in our heads. And the concepts these psychologists work with, which I also find useful and amazingly close to the temptation story we just read, is the concept of an inner driver or inner drivers. There are many concepts and books about it. I don't want to go into depth because I'm not a psychologist, but we can understand this little part, I think, because it's very close to the offers Jesus is presented with. And what is the first thing we hear? The first thing was all riches and you get them now. All recognition and you get it now. All food, stones to bread, and you get it now. So the first voice is, be fast. You need to be faster. Everything must go faster. Because the interesting thing is, it's not a problem. Jesus won't fast his whole life. Eventually he will eat again, but not now. And he will be in the public eye where people will see how he can do miracles, but not now. So the point of this voice is that it says it has to happen right now. It has to be very fast. And the second inner driver also goes in this direction. Show your power, you can do it, so just do it. This driver is called be perfect. The third driver, which is very, very easy to understand when you think of the temple scene, when you think you're the Messiah, you should want people to see what you can do. The third driver is make everyone like you. So do what the people want to see. And if it means you need to fall from the temple, then just do that. Isn't that what the people expect of the Son of God? And finally, this show your power. Get in on this deal. All riches of the world for you in all glory. This is your chance. Be strong. Because this strange deal that you dream about, wandering around Galilee, healing a few people and dying on a cross in the end, what a dumb deal. I have something better. You get to be king. Surprisingly close to what psychologists call inner drivers, and the little I understood from it. In short, if we go through each of them, we might find it familiar. But what's connected with it? This be quick, this constant feeling to be under time pressure. This I never have enough time, and it should be faster. And when in the end 3 minutes remain from the time, then I must plan even those minutes. Because really I have no time, and you can tell it's true whether you're on vacation. When you have nothing to do, you are still stressed. You don't even know why. You're even stressed on vacation, and at the beginning of the vacation you think vacation will be over so soon. So you practically live with an inner drive that even continues when there's nothing on the outside to push it. That's how this inner driver works. Be fast. You can never come to rest because there's no rest on the inside. It's a similar way the be perfect driver works. With all of these, there's also good and right elements to it. To strive for doing a good job is wonderful, a great drive. The problem about this driver is it will never get enough. It's just never enough. And if someone praises you, then you can't accept it because you think it's not really true. I was actually bad. But if someone criticizes you, it's much worse. Then you need to hit everyone because the idea is unbearable that it wasn't perfect, that you aren't just perfect. Because you have this inner voice telling you that you're supposed to be perfect. And you can never be happy with yourself. You can never be happy because the voice says it should be even better. And of course this applies to religion too. You should be even more holy, you pray even longer. You prayed for 8 hours, you should be praying for 9. Or like in Augsburg, you should pray day and night, but that would still be too little because you're never perfect enough, never perfect. You can never give enough. That's a driver. And of course, make everyone like you. Making everyone like you is a driver that makes the feeling unbearable when someone is upset with you. You can't stand it, that someone is upset with you. It robs your sleep. You would rather break yourself. You have to let that sink in, how evil and dangerous this is. You would rather be willing to be unhappy than to see someone else unhappy with you. This desire to make everyone happy, that everyone is satisfied and happy with you, or one particular person you're thinking about. The fourth driver I showed you was be strong. The problem is, none of us are always strong. The inner driver, be strong, just means to hide your weakness. Don't allow feelings. Just go to harshness and coldness if it doesn't work. You need to be merciless. You must forbid intimacy. If you let someone get too close, then it's dangerous, because then they'll see you're not that strong. These are people who build walls around themselves, a sheet of ice. And that too can look very religious. It's due to this thing. I always need to be strong. I can't ask for help. I need to always manage it on my own. And it can become merciless, like walking over dead bodies. All these drivers, which remain highly relevant to this day, we all know them. And maybe you even know all four of them. I know all four. And in our current time, the digital era, they get another special nuance, which I want to quickly share with you in passing. This driver to be fast is certainly even more encouraged in the digital world, because our life in general is massively accelerated. You can no longer allow yourself to only reply to an email after 3 days. Maybe you can reply after 1 day, but what about WhatsApp messages? Can you wait a full day? What would they think all that time, and then I have to answer? Or there's FOMO. Ever heard of FOMO, fear of missing out? Like everyone else already posted, everyone is doing something and I'm not. And this also has to do with be perfect. You can evoke a wonderful picture of yourself on Instagram and social media. You see, wow, they went to Mallorca on vacation, and they went to vacation here and I didn't go anywhere. And then you need to post something in order to somehow belong, so you're also cool and have your fancy latte macchiato. And then you see all those happy couples who announce again that they have been so happy together for 5 years. They all look so happy. In reality, they aren't happy at all. We know this because most couples aren't happy. But it looks so perfect and happy. And of course, the be perfect means I always need to hide reality. Then I can't just post a real picture. It needs a filter on it. You can see the pores on my nose. I look so old, so I'll add a filter on top. And then I also want to make everyone like me, because I must always be available. Do you know that feeling? I can't turn off the phone in case somebody calls me. What if they need something urgent from me? Then they try calling and they are upset about me, and I feel unhappy, and I don't give myself this 1 hour I would need. Oh, how beautiful is Panama, where I could just be and enjoy my life's richness, because I think, oh, out there on Facebook or the WhatsApp chat, out there things are happening and I have to go there, and then you go and you aren't actually needed there, and you lose life's richness in the here and now because you try once again to please everyone by constantly being available. There would be much to say about this digital media as an inner driver. I'd like to share more on that on a separate occasion. But one last thing for now. This make everyone like you is an inner driver that is overly fueled by social media. You can go on social media for the first time in human history and simply by posting a picture of a cat or your cappuccino get hundreds or thousands of people to show you that they see you and they like you and even give you attention with a heart. Then you see, the more hearts you get, the more people like you. And our brains respond so much to this. We want people to like us. But our brain isn't built for hundreds of people to constantly tell us this at once. And it's especially not built for you to post something and then suddenly get no likes or get negative comments. You post a selfie and here come the negative comments. If someone says to you, "I don't like you," that hits each of us emotionally. But we live on social media in a way where you give anonymous people who you'd never allow to speak into your life the power to judge your looks in public. Let that sink in for a moment. It's no wonder that many young people, especially young girls, are suffering from body shaming or anorexia, who compare themselves so much with this inhumane perfection grace. This is what the perfect female body looks like. It's completely gaga. It's completely crazy. All these things, of course, didn't start with social media, but they gain more power through digitalization. I would like to end the side note on social media and get back to the drivers in general and how they work. Two things are important to know about these drivers. The first is, they aren't per se bad. In general, it's good if you can hurry. It's terrible if someone never has the drive to be fast. It's awful if you never have the drive to do a good job. I'm so free from the driver of perfection. Well, then you sit in bed all day and eat chips. Or make everyone like me. It's good to sense how the things I'm doing land with others. This is even a very important impulse. And it's also important to sometimes be strong. Do not be like a feather and fall over with every emotion. The problem with inner drivers is when one voice becomes too dominant and kills all the other voices, when it becomes like a dictator and an enemy of good life. And these inner drivers, if we take it a step deeper, if we were to ask like a philosopher or a theologian, have one thing in common, namely a promise, meaning life is only rich when ... So they say, you can only rest after you're done with everything. You can only be happy when everyone else is happy with you. You can only like yourself when you're the strongest and best of all. Let me show you how this works with your psyche by illustrating it with a drawing, which in turn, you guessed it, comes from a children's book. And you probably will recognize it right away. Whoever recognizes it and gets what I'm getting at can say so in a minute. Okay, what animal is that? Well, it's a donkey, right? Good answer. And there's a famous donkey from a children's book. And he's got a problem. That he has a carrot hanging right here. You guys know it? It's from Winnie the Pooh, I think. There's a dangling carrot. And what the inner driver says is, that is the true life. There you can truly celebrate. There you can be content with yourself. There you are God's beloved son. When you first are fast enough, and once you got holy enough, once you got strong enough, when you somehow got complete enough. And perhaps we can see why this isn't quite such a neutral thing, why these voices are even attributed to the devil in the story with Jesus. Because it's this promise, do something to be happy, but the thing you should do for it isn't good. And this voice runs very deep. It starts in the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, with the voice of the tempter saying, out there. Adam and Eve have everything. They are fully happy, they live in complete riches, but they believe this voice, oh no, here you must eat this fruit. It might be the exact fruit you weren't supposed to eat, but it will make you happy. Then your eyes will open, you will experience something super great. And the opposite is true. They eat it, but then they are in bondage. The New Testament concerning the topic of inner freedom is quite sober. For example, Paul writes, actually, let's go to another passage first. Quote by Jesus. Jesus is in a dialogue with religious people, the Jews of his day. And they say, we're free, we're not slaves. And then Jesus says, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. So Jesus says, hold on, the things you are doing show that you aren't free. And that sounds so menacing. That's a slave to sin. I did that wrong again. I'm so bad. No. It's not about moralizing judgment for Jesus. It goes much deeper. So what is sin in the New Testament? It's not about parking wrong. And I don't know, I once ate an unhealthy cake with cream, so because God is grumpy and won't let us have things so we could be happy or something. Not at all. It's really about liberation. The whole Bible is a story of liberation. God wants free people. It's not about submission by force. It's about being free at the heart level from the things that bind us. Once again, this is something the modern world completely overlooks. It says, let's throw off all of our chains. Everyone can now freely define how they do this or how they do that, and then you're free of all things. Yes, you are. You're free from all outside things. And then you're bound and chained to your own desires and wishes, which all too often don't do you good. It's about a deeper freedom, namely what kind? Jesus says, whoever sins is a slave to sin, and Paul interprets in his letter to the Romans, everything that does not come from faith is sin. Now this does not mean everything where you didn't say the Nicene Creed first, or whatever has a religious appearance. This doesn't say music isn't by Bethel is sin. This is not what this says. A t-shirt without a Christian slogan on it is sin, not what it means. It's about something much more existential. And I imagine it like this. In every crisis situation of your life and every decision situation, two voices compete for your loyalty. Two voices compete for your heart. In every desert, when you're alone, when you feel lacking, when nobody is around, or when questions arise like, okay, I haven't eaten in the last 40 days, now the bread has to come from somewhere. Or, I'm the Messiah, but I'm hanging out in the desert and nobody sees me, I'm not famous at all and I have no power. In a situation like this, two voices always compete for your heart. And the one voice is the voice of fear, of being skeptical and cynical, of bitterness, and you can't trust it. And the second voice is the voice of faith. It's the voice of trust. At the deepest heart level, this is what it's about in all life choices. You can go through it in your mind. Which voice do you listen to? The voice that makes your heart tight and scared and skeptical? Or the voice that calls you to trust, that calls you not to be afraid?
Have you noticed there are no ads on this channel? This is the only one. There's one reason for that. This channel is funded by donations only. If you want to help us to continue with this work, you find everything about supporting us below in the description. Now enjoy the rest of the video.
Abraham is called a father of faith. He didn't have a creed of faith yet. He didn't even have the 10 Commandments. He had no Bible. How could he be the father of faith? Because Abraham's faith was exactly this essence. He would have had 10,000 reasons. I'm not just going to move away from home to some desert when things are so nice here. He would have had 10,000 reasons to say, I'm staying right here with what I know, what my parents did, what gods they believed in, etc. But by faith, he follows this voice that calls him out of there. And that's an act of faith, which calls him into freedom. And that, friends, is the topic of freedom and inner freedom. It's something delicate and important all throughout the Bible. Also with the Exodus from Egypt, you would ask, why did they even need to leave Egypt? They could have also prayed in Egypt. Well, God says, go to the Pharaoh and say, let my people go so they may worship me in the desert. Why not worship in Egypt? Because it's about something deeper. Because we need these steps of freedom to really be able to let God be God. This inner bondage of Israel also had to first be overcome. Recently it was Christmas. Going back to this unpleasant story of the donkey and the carrot. Recently it was Christmas. And in the Catholic Church there is a Christmas Eve on the evening of the 24th, where they read from the book of Isaiah. And I find it really beautiful, quite poetic. Isaiah writes in chapter 9, I want to read this to you. And it's always read on Christmas. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as a people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. For as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. The day of Midian was an older story where there was a literal liberation from slavery. But the interesting thing is, at the time when the prophet says this, Israel isn't in slavery. It's not about them being in a political situation of slavery. It's about something deeper, something else. And I want to read these sentences again. You have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Friends, I believe that God desires to break the rod of the oppressor. And this is something God wants to do, and He can do it in your life. And at the same time, it's something where we cooperate. So God has a part in it, and we have a part. But God doesn't want you to run after that carrot like a slave your whole life, greedy for recognition until the day comes where you are finally fast enough or finally perfect enough, where you make everyone like you, where you finally are strong enough. God wants to actually break this rod of the oppressor. And the question is, how does that happen? I'll show you a few practical steps later, things you can do, but that's just our contribution. It's about a spiritual, a faith truth, which needs to be stronger than that. We need something more solid, where we can live differently. And I also came across an Old Testament passage, actually in the same book. I have to paraphrase a little bit, because the language here is a bit bulky. This passage leads us to the center of the question, what is this new life model if we don't want to live like that? I hope you don't want to live like that. A few chapters later in the book of Isaiah, God asks His people, why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare. Literally, it translates that God says, you should eat fat foods. But as you may guess, this is probably about more profound things than nutrition. And it moves me so much when He says, why do you take your money, the wages of your labor? So why are you working so hard for something that doesn't satisfy you? Isn't our human history full of this, where people put their health and relationships on the line just to get more money? Wasting their precious time to make some person on the internet happy, or to gain recognition through some sort of status, because they're finally pretty enough after the 18th cosmetic surgery, or because they finally drive that car, or because they have this and this and that. And it never comes, and when it comes, they bite the carrot for a moment and realize it doesn't satisfy them. The alternative model God offers here is very interesting. He says, listen to me. Listen to me, then you will get the best food and can lavish yourself with fat foods. Well, how do we get there? How could Jesus resist this voice? From what essence could Jesus live? I think the essence Jesus lived by was that He had just come from an encounter with God, which had told Him, you are my beloved Son. And He listened to those words. God says, listen to me, then you will get the best. You could even say beneath this desert experience, and before Jesus has to do something, before He accomplishes anything, before He has riches or recognition, He rests on this foundation of being loved. Those of you with a keen eye already see this is the color of the carrot. So Jesus basically is resting in a carrot. Okay, now the metaphors are getting mixed up. Jesus rests in a carrot, meaning he doesn't need to run after it, because he already starts there. And if you find out that you already live in Panama, that you don't have to travel around the world, gain the whole world and lose your soul, and in the end return poorer than you were before. But now the passage says, listen to me. It means you need to not listen to some other voices so you can hear this voice. This is the counter-offer. The tempter says to Jesus, if this was really true, if this is really true, then just do this and do that. And Jesus says, no, I'm staying with what God said. And I can't make it more practical. But in the end, my wish is that you discover this level and live out of the truth that you are accepted and you are loved beyond any achievement. That this may become your foundation. So I have to honestly say I hope that the older I get, the more I grow in this area, because running around in the outward world comes and goes. But what kind of lifestyle would that be, as Paul says, rooted and founded on love? That would be a life where you can truly break free from these inner drivers and where you can truly become a fruit-bearing person for many people. I'll show you one more thing, 6 little steps how you can practically deal with such inner voices and drivers. More important is what I already said, that it's Jesus' wish that these drivers lose their deadly power, that it is broken. And that the wish of the Heavenly Father is that you live grounded in this acceptance and not living to one day be accepted. That's a big difference. A very big difference. 6 little steps how you can deal with this in your daily life. The first step is to simply notice what is there. Come, not this stuff again. Oh no, I have an inner driver, I did another thing wrong. How can I get rid of it quickly? Instead, it's enough to just be aware. Okay, wow, in me or in this situation, this inner pressure and voice comes up saying, you need to act now, you need to be perfect, you need to manage everything. And now, this is really great. Simply by taking the step back and observing and asking, do I actually want this? Something great happens, namely, important, pay attention. If I can observe it, this means that I'm not simply that thing. So if I observe a feeling, okay, there's grief in me, it means that I am not the grief, but grief is there right now. This empowers you to become an adult subject. So a person who can say, yes, the voice is there, make everyone like you. Or then, but if I can observe it, then it means I'm not powerless at the voice's mercy. The voice isn't me, because you are many. And some of the voices are good and some are half and half. The great part is, even the things the tempter says to Jesus, those aren't completely evil. But it's the wrong timing. It's not a bad thing that Jesus can turn stones to bread. Yes, he can do it, but this wasn't what was right for the moment. You see, these inner drivers too, they aren't your enemies. You don't have to catapult them out of your life. But they don't need to control everything. Rather, you can listen, okay, what kind of impulses are there right now? Or what do I really want? And importantly, what other voices are there as well? The problem is, when one of these voices become too loud, for example, be fast, be fast, be fast. But maybe you notice another voice that tells you, I'm actually at the end of my rope, I'm so exhausted, I can't go on. And one voice is overpowering all the time. Like taking a step back to ask what other voices are also there. Or the one that says, I want to get more powerful, another says, actually I care about how my family is doing, or my relationship, or my spiritual life. Observe what other voices are there. Now sometimes you get to a point where you have to renounce a voice. With Jesus, these three things are also very, very radical, so he has to really decide against it. And you sometimes need to do that too. Sometimes it's this: he breaks the rod of the oppressor, so you also have to break it. Then you can say, hey, I'm breaking with this thing. And don't underestimate the power of such simple words. I also renounce. Renouncing is an old tradition also in the liturgy. So if you come from liturgical churches, then you know the creed of faith. You say together what you believe in. I believe in God the Father, the Almighty, and so on. But on Easter night, the classical liturgy also includes a renunciation. If you believe one thing, you also have to let go of the other thing. And even just saying this out loud, I renounce the inner driver that I always need to be strong. Don't underestimate the power of words. Even those that were merely spoken in prayer or your quiet room, don't underestimate them. It doesn't mean that it will suddenly go away forever. That's simply not always the case. It's often like a highway in your brain. It runs really deep and it has been there for a very long time. Don't be without mercy with yourself if it's a longer journey. But you don't have to follow each of these impulses all the time. You can bit by bit gain your freedom back. Then fourth point, sometimes an outward step is also necessary. If you realize I'm stuck in this, I need to take a step out, otherwise I won't be free on the inside. Classic for me personally. I need to prescribe myself social media fasting every once in a while. I do a lot on social media and I enjoy it. There's a lot of positive things, but I also notice how it attaches to things in me that aren't good. And now you can't always move out of the world. You can't say, I'll do nothing that could tempt me, that won't work. But you can take times of fasting. If you're always driven, it will be very hard for you to go into a fast of slow pace. I prescribe myself 2 weeks of being slow, or 2 weeks where I cancel all appointments. That will be incredibly hard for you. And if you are someone who wants everyone to like you, you will barely stand it to say, I'll be unreachable for 3 days. And now nobody can come into my room. If you have family, this will be harder to organize. But it's like a fast you have to prescribe to yourself sometimes. Or if you realize in a relationship I'm in the job I'm in, I can't escape the pattern, then maybe an outward step is in order. Not always, but sometimes. Finally, I'll get to this point a little later, affirmations. Affirmations are also called other things. Some people call them belief statements. Sometimes you can speak sentences to yourself. Renunciation is one thing. The other are sentences that you can speak to yourself to be grounded and rooted in here. Don't underestimate the power of words, because our brain is programmed with thought patterns. And if those are a result of lifelong training, side note, oftentimes you inherited these thought patterns from your family, then they can run really deep. It won't change so quickly. And it's a good fight of faith that must be fought. Don't believe everything you think. You shouldn't do that anyway. And finally, the most important thing is that you act differently. The final step is to practice the opposite. We live in a time where it's often said, especially in self-help books, who you are is more important than what you do. Who you are is important, not what you do. And the truth is, it's true, but the things you do have an incredible impact on you. So it is important what you do. Otherwise, it all stays in your head and it's a mental trip. If you want to break free from one of those patterns, then you have to practice something else. It means if you notice I can't escape this being fast thing on my own, then you need to prescribe changes for yourself in your daily life like a medicine. You need to really take these. It's not enough to read the instruction leaflet on the medicine. You have to practice another behavior. That won't happen so quickly, but it's important. If you notice I have a being strong thing and I'm ice cold and walk over everyone, maybe you need to get used to entrusting yourself to a person you know well, someone you also show your dark sides with and where you are weak. Or you need to practice. You can practice asking for help. Something like, if I notice my tendency is to run through the wall or just make things worse, I'll call someone and say, please help me. Maybe that's exactly what you don't want because it's hard, but it will help you practice the opposite and get you out bit by bit. You know, the majority of our lives is a day-to-day. In spiritual life, it's also not about filling our life completely with religious activity. That's nonsense. It's not about you no longer going to work so you can only pray. That wouldn't make sense. But the majority of our lives is the day-to-day. But the question is, which voice do you listen to on a daily basis? What do you live by on a daily basis? By this pattern? Or do you live by this pattern? I want to show you a point about these affirmations real quick. I already mentioned them, now I'll give you some examples and then finish that topic. You can look for your own affirmations. For example, from the Bible, you could write them down. These are sentences that connect you with the truth and are the opposite of the half-truth from these inner drivers. Sentences like, there's enough time for the things that are important now. It's a good sentence for all of us who are always stressed and feel like there is never enough time. The truth is, there is enough time right now for the things that are important. Or this sentence, some things are allowed to take time. Some things are allowed to take time. This is also a sentence that isn't so easy for me. I would also like to pull the grass up to grow faster. But I realize it's a good sentence and very true. Some things can take time and that's okay. Even I can take time. Especially if you're in this, it has to be fast and feel on the inside, I need to put everything into practice right now. I need to never make this mistake again. You will be so stressed. But I learned so much on the Weniger conference about reducing stress. I need to do it now. Yes, you will surely put some of it into practice, but you can take some time for it. You see, simply by saying this sentence, wow, a vastness comes back in. You can breathe freely again. Or simply the sentence, which has always been my favorite affirmation because it's so deep, I can be. The sentence sounds so basic, but it's anything but basic. It's profound. Because the carrot says you must do. You need to do something because the now isn't okay. But I can be says, no, it is okay. You can start from a place of life, abundance, and acceptance. And then you can look at these voices with calmness. Where are they right? Where might it be good to do something? And where is it bad for life? Or the sentence, I am just as I am, loved and valued. Some of us need to take this like a medicine. I am just as I am, loved and valued. And then a voice comes to say, but now you should. Hold on. I am just as I am, loved and valued. And then I can still think about, yes, I should hurry sometimes, okay, but it starts from a different reason, completely different. Or this sentence, I am a beautiful construction site. I made that one up, I think it's cool. I'm a beautiful construction site. That's for the perfectionist among us. We always think everything has to be finished. When you build a house, we, for example, bought a house a few years ago while it was still being built. And it's not like you say, what a crappy house. Actually not true. We went with our kids, who are here today, by the way. We went to see the house while it was still bare bricks. And our kids said, it's a dumb house. We don't want to live there. The rain comes in and it's cold. And we told them it will get better. We saw something beautiful in the construction site because we knew it would get better. You see a construction site differently when you know a good architect is behind it. And you can look at yourself the same way. Often we look at our bare bricks and say, what a dumb house. Well, it's a work in progress. It's a work of art that develops bit by bit. You are a beautiful construction site. Yes, rain sometimes leaks in, true, but it's beautiful and will become something beautiful. 2 years ago, it was much worse. You should have seen it then. That's the perspective you can take on yourself. Or simply, I can ask for help. That's such an important sentence. You neither have to nor can you do everything by yourself. It's simply okay to walk up to someone and say, I can't do this anymore. I need help. I need to talk to someone. I need someone to pray for me. I need someone to come over this evening. I need help right now. That's just a good thing. And it's so strange. Sometimes it's so hard for us to go to someone and say, you know, I'm not doing great. I need your help, right? It can be hard. But how is it when someone comes to you and says, I'm not doing well. I need your help? Is it hard for you to open your heart? No, you usually help gladly. I'm gladly there for you. It's just these lies that tell you you need to be perfect. You can't let anyone come close, never show weakness. It's a dumb Panama lie. You have to travel somewhere in the world. No, everything is here already. There's so much right here. Or this one I have from my wife. She's currently training as a therapist, and she works there with these cloth dolls. It's quite funny. Sometimes we tend to make topics our own that aren't our business. Sound familiar? It also has to do with this driver, I need everyone to like me. It's this thing where I think all day about what you think and how you're doing or feeling. My wife has these puppet monkeys. And the sentence to go along with it, I think it's great. She has it from a book, I think, not my zoo, not my monkey. It's like if you watch a monkey jumping around in their cage, but it's not your zoo. You can say, nice monkey, but it's not my business. I'm not responsible for it. Sometimes you can tell this to yourself. When you get upset about your boss, your partner, your parents, or your neighbor, it not only annoys you, but drives you on in the inside. You don't find any rest anymore. You feel so responsible. You can then tell yourself, not my zoo, not my monkey. I think it's funny. There is one more. I thought about this a while. If this is a driver, I think only a psychologist can explain it to me. I'm not an expert on this. But it's something that is popular these days, especially among young people. And it's not a driver, but a pseudo-liberator. And the pseudo-liberator says, everything is so exhausting. I'll go to sleep, I'll just chill. And I call it the inner brakes. And it comes along with this slogan, hey, just chill. Stop stressing, let's take this easy. And it sounds like it's an liberation. But it won't set you free. It's just avoidance and a lie. And the lie is similar to the temptation to turn stones to bread. And the lie says, it has to always feel good. And this lie has befallen our generation and the generations that are younger than me very strongly. We very much have this thing, if it's challenging, if it's stressful, then it must be bad. If it costs too much, if people stop liking me, it's connected to that as well. And if it's too exhausting, then it must be the rod of the driver. We don't want that. But this is a pseudo-liberation. These are inner brakes. And it can be similar to the rod of the driver, even if it looks so harmless. Because sometimes the way to the freedom you're called to is really stressful, but it's good. Here the affirmation will help you to say, it's okay if it's sometimes stressful. That's just normal and it's okay. It won't kill you if some things are stressful. Last part, and this is something beautiful. I told you a lot about Abraham. I want to say again, you aren't doing anything wrong if you hear these voices. They also have truth to them. But the force with which they come and only emphasize one thing, that becomes bad for life. And I hope you go on a path similar to Abraham. And what I think is so cool about Abraham is he had a deep life wound, a huge life topic. And his life topic was that he was so old and had no children. That was his life topic. So an old man and his wife was also old and they wanted to have kids, but they had none. And it's a point of temptation for him. Because still nothing happens. He was supposed to have a child with his wife, but has none. So then he sleeps with his servant, and then Ishmael is born. From the driver, it has to happen now. I do believe the promise that I'm supposed to have a child, but then a lot of problems happen. So it's his vulnerable spot. And the story with the woman and so on, it's his vulnerable spot. And yet it's the place where God is working on him and where God wants to grant a promise. Your inner driver may also be your greatest strength, but it's also your trap. You don't need to stop being focused on people if that's your strength. You don't need to stop bringing good results if that's a good thing. You don't need to stop being fast. But you're allowed to gain ground. Here a new sovereignty enters here. You will still be fast. By the way, maybe you know this already, but I say this to myself as to anyone. These are also self-therapeutic talks that concern me too. The problem is when these things make themselves the rulers. And so in the end, it's also always about worship. That's why Jesus says, I won't bow before you. I won't bow before you now. I only bow before God. And God tells him Jesus will get all of heaven and earth at his feet, just not right away. Jesus will do miracles in public, just not right away. And Adam and Eve really got all of life's riches from God, but it goes wrong when they take by force what God already wanted to give them.
Das nehmen, was Gott ihnen sowieso schenken will.
I think the measure of inner freedom that you're called to is much greater than you imagine. And it is my prayer that you and I become people who don't run after a carrot, the things out there, a great life that might come one day. But that we learn to resist these drivers. Be fast, make everyone like you, be perfect and always be strong. Instead, let's learn, hey, the rich life is already right now. I already have it. And from that place, I can then do the works that are grounded in love and aren't under the dictatorship of a slave driver, which I myself am too often, where I mind myself and talk down myself, but where I can go on the gentle, loving, fruitful, and sometimes stressful ways of God.